What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we diving into a Boros artifact deck that I put together over on my live stream. This has definitely been a fun deck that I played after, messing around with the Selesnya enchant artifact deck. I then kind of shifted to trying out artifacts with some of the new cards, some of the new red cards from Brothers War. Definitely had some pretty good success with it in budget form, as it is fairly cheap to put together, as a lot of cards are from, one set like Kamigawa, while also splashing in some cards from other sets as well. But for the most part, you can get most of these cards from just opening packs from Kamigawa, which definitely makes it approachable. The only cards that I would say that are in the deck that are on the more expensive side would be the Mechanized Warfare. I think this is a card that definitely boosts the overall feel of the deck, in the sense that it gives all our red and or artifact sources that we control with the damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1. If you get one of these out or two of these out, it definitely packs a bigger punch, making all your little small creatures that much stronger and making your opponent have to really think whether or not they have to deal with those creatures, because in the long run this damage will stack up. The reason why we didn't just go mono black is I also want to splash in a couple Mishako's Reign of Truth, another 2-drop enchantment that when it enters the battlefield, we get +1/+1 to end a turn for each artifact and enchantment we control on target creature. We have a lot of small, cheap creatures, making them that much stronger, especially early. Will definitely help, overrun our opponent's life total. Then on the third chapter, we get the 0/0 that gets +1/+1 for each artifact or enchantment control. So we do get a stable creature on the battlefield after it goes through for only 2 mana, which definitely makes it good. Other than that, Patchwork Automaton is kind of like the main creature in the deck that definitely, if we can get this out on curve on turn 2 and play a bunch of artifacts afterwards, this card gets kind of hard to deal with, in the sense that it has Ward 2, so it's harder to spot removal, especially in the early game when mana is definitely a little bit more restrictive. So definitely a good card there. We play a bunch of 1-drops in like Yodian Frontliner, a 1-drop 1/1 that whenever it attacks, target creature control gets +1/+1, so it helps buff the team. We can unearth it for 1 white, meaning that we can attack in with it immediately once we unearth it and get the same effect, though it does get exiled afterwards. Hotshot Mechanic, another 1-drop that's a 2/1. This is actually an artifact creature, so it does get the benefit of the Mechanized Warfare, even though it's a white spell, because it is an artifact. We do get that additional 1+ there. Mishra's Research Desk is another great card that I've come to enjoy in the Brothers War, a solid 1-drop artifact that has upside in it, that we can tap it for 1 mana, sacrifice it, exile top 2 cards of our library, and we get to play one of them until the end of our next turn. Which is definitely great, and then we can unearth it and do it again, so it's like we can do it for 2 mana, and then we do it for 3 mana, which is definitely not that bad. A couple experimental synthesizers, as we aren't really playing like Anvil here, so I think synthesizer's still a great card, because it does help us dig a little bit deeper. And then in worst case scenario, if you are looking for a way to sacrifice it, you just pay 3 mana. Definitely good there. We got a couple Play with Fires, just another, 1 mana, 2 damage to any target, spot removal, or damage to the face to get a little bit of scry. 4 Rabbit Batteries, as it gives any of our creatures we equip it haste and +1/+1, or itself is a 1/1 for 1 that has haste, so we can attack it immediately when we play it. Reinforced Ronin, another great card that syncs well with Automaton, in the sense that we can play for the 1 mana creature side. At the end of our end step, it returns back to our hand, and we kind of keep on replaying it, keep on pumping Automaton in that way. And then if we really need a card draw, we can pay 2 mana to discard it and draw a card, and it can't be countered. So it's like a 2 mana draw a card for free without like a chance of being countered. In the 2-drop slot, we have 4 Lightning Strikes, another solid card in that it's a 2 mana, deal 3 damage, and then it gets stronger and stronger as, we get Mechanized Warfares out on the battlefield. We already went over the Automaton. We also have a couple Circuit Menders in here, just a solid, a little bit of gain life, just because the meta is kind of aggro-ish, so having a way to kind of gain a little bit of life, and then if it does die, we get to draw a card, making it, making your opponent have to make that difficult choice if they want to give us a card, if they're going to kill it. And then in the 4-drop slot, we have Twin Snot Sniper, a 4-drop 2/3 with reach. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target, or we can channel it for 2 mana and deal 2 damage to any target. So definitely good, more spot removal. The one card I actually didn't include in the deck is the 1 mana, deal 2 damage. If you sacrifice an artifact, it deals 4 damage. I felt it was kind of clunky, just because some of the things we want to you would sacrifice for it aren't like targets I really would want to sacrifice to remove something. So I do think, not including them is definitely kind of where I leaned. I have made adjustments, so in the gameplay that you will see, you may see a card or 2 that I may have cut out, but I think this is the final version that I did end up playing at the end, so I'll have this link down in the description below if you want to copy it. And then after we go through the gameplay, I will dive back into the deck, and we'll kind of talk about how to go about approaching it when it comes to upgrading it. And with that being said, let's just dive into gameplay and kind of see how it plays. On the play, 1 lander. if we draw lands, hand's great. If we don't draw lands, hand's garbage. Not much better, but we'll keep 6 and we'll put the queen to the bottom. Unfortunately. Black, white. Sure. Gonna get rid of Play with Fire, I'm assuming. Mishra's Desk is really good. So we're playing probably something that's a little bit more on the control side here. Yeah, it's like Esper control. And then we'll exile Mishra we'll sacrifice it at the end of their turn. Is kind of, I think, the play I'm going to go with. It's probably a counter, but we'll get this for the life gain. Right? There's probably like a make disappear here. Sure. So just pure Esper control opponent? All right, they don't have a land now. We'll get that. No stick. No wonder an Emperor on their end. Like, what do they got? Celestis? Sure. Ooh. 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 Got a counter spell? You have a negate of all spells. Alright. Sure. Another white. They'll probably sit here and... draw 2. Down to 1. Well, now they know what I have in hand. Might as well do that. What do you got for me, opponent? Sure. Yeah, I guess it depends. Like, for the most part. Any non-basics to begin with anyway, but any dual color decks, you're definitely going to struggle with keeping pressure. Like, because you get one colorless land, but you need that, like, double white or double other color. It's, like, always that downside of playing. kind of why whatchamacallit was so good in monocolor decks before it got banned last rotation. I mean, either way, we'll see what happens here next turn. But I think I had to get something down. Like next turn, if I play tap land. If we draw untap land. So they want to flip is the big thing here. Yeah. I want to see if they trade. I'll be quite honest. I always like to see if I put them. All right. I mean, I could kill it now. I'm at 0. Just wanted to see if they blocked. I mean, Delver never flips, but I mean, that's probably why they want to trade it. But now it's like, oh, they have a counter spell, right? Like this feels so counter spell heavy. Yotan. We're trying to play it around counter spells. See, now we just attack for 1. Because 10-1, they have a make disappear. Right? Now they just done nothing on their turn. Or they bounce something of ours back. And then maybe they think, like, oh, they have little small creatures. We'll just play, like, a Jhin. I swear, I'm just speaking, not being serious. We'll attack for 5. One for Jhin doesn't seem very good now. And bounce spells don't seem very good now. Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's good, though. It's like a good, very budget-friendly, like, competitive deck. All right? That just seems like we're just trying to get things in the graveyard. Or we're going to bounce things. Spend your mana. Or not. Yeah. I mean, they have to spend a ton of mana for... It's the one that gets stuff back from our graveyard. Sure. You can bounce it. We're still going to hit you for 3. And we replay it. And we say go. Fun. Got you in the face? Want a Ganjo? Maybe. I grabbed them one of my, Alright, so... We'll play Ronin. Get some counters going. Or not. Alright, so I'll get a +1/+1 counter. Sweet. I'll trade. One of my favorite decks overall. It depends, to be quite honest. Yeah, that's what I thought. You want to trade. I like mid-range, to be quite honest, one that does a lot of things. You know, like there's like you get triggers and stuff. Sure. Like, I guess in a way they're not like full combo, but they're definitely a bunch of combo. Do they have a counterspell? So there's enchantments and Rakdos Sack. I like the Rakdos Sack deck. That's kind of like where I'm at. You gotta counter it. Did they have to counter it? Probably not. But, you know, it is one of those things that I knew they had it, so I had to play it the other way. And we are back. So overall, the games went pretty good. I do think Boros Artifacts is definitely a good, solid deck. You know, if you're looking to play something a little bit different than the typical, like, mono red aggro, I think Boros Artifacts is another great budget, approachable, like, aggro deck that you could play. When it comes to upgrading the deck, I do have some cards here in the sideboard that you can kind of look at if you're looking to, you know, try to get the deck stronger, if you really like the style, the way the deck plays, and try to take advantage that way. Some of these cards you may already have a copy of, because I believe two of them, I believe the Lion Sash and the Sundown Pass are two cards that you get from the starter decks, the dual color starter decks that you got from this past summer. If you are new to the game, you have to do the color challenge, complete the color challenge, I believe all the way through, and somewhere along that process you'll unlock a red-white deck that gives you the land. I don't know if it's the same deck that gives you the Lion Sash, but I know Lion Sash is also in one of those decks, so it's definitely those are two cards that you'll probably have in your collection, so maybe you can add them in immediately. I actually think Lion Sash is a great card in this current format, just because a lot of cards have the Unearth ability, or things have flashback and whatnot. And I do think this is a great card to probably add a copy of into the deck, just to kind of have. I don't think it's something you need four of. But it's a good card just to kind of, you know, start exiling things from graveyards. And if the card you exiled was a permanent, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then equipped creature gets +1/+1 counter for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash, and has the reconfigurability / equip ability, whatever you want to call it, for 2 mana, which definitely, you know, you can put this on a creature and then, you know, kind of gives it this artifact protection. And, you know, if there's some sort of board wipe, because after the creature dies, this then becomes unequipped, then becomes a creature again. But still, nonetheless, it's a great card to have. So if you want to add in your one copy of Lion Sash, I'd probably just cut down somewhere in the 1-drop slot, just make it very simple and easy and straightforward. So I'd probably cut down on like probably one of these frontliners, just because we are kind of heavy in the 1-drop slot is probably where I'd start. Then after that, we have things like Angel Fire Ignition. This is a 3-drop sorcery spell. It's not an artifact spell, it's not an enchantment spell, but I do think this is a great card to have because it puts 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. It gives that creature vigilance, trample, lifelink, indestructible, and hasten to end a turn. Then on the following turn, we can recast it again and kind of get the same effect. So I actually probably do 2 copies of this and then cut the Mashako's Reign of Truth, just because I do think this is a lot better. In the sense, because like it's going to give whatever creature we target with it that much, you know, make it that much stronger, and the creature's going to stay on the battlefield. Whereas Mashako is kind of like really reliant on maybe if our opponent targets something on beginning of our upkeep type of thing, though our opponent can kind of remove the creature that we're targeting with this. Though I do think this is kind of one of those things that isn't kind of face up on the table, and we can kind of surprise our opponent, though it is sorcery speed, so we still do it before combat. But still, nonetheless, it's a great card to have, and the fact that it has flashback makes it that much better. Then after that, we have Autonomous Assembler. This is another great card that I do like in this deck. It's a card that gets bigger as the game goes on. It's a card that we can play for the 5-drop side and get the 4/5 Vigilance with the 1 mana ability that we tap it, put a +1/+1 counter on target assembly worker we control. I don't think any of our artifacts in our deck, other than itself, is an assembly worker, so itself is going to get bigger for only 1 mana. And the upside of this card is that we can pay 2 mana and get a 2/2 vigilance creature and then start that ability much earlier if we have 1 open mana. So this is probably something I would probably put 4 copies of, just because I do think it's that good. And then I probably look at somewhere in our 1-drop slot yet again, because this is in a lot of ways we're not really paying 5 mana most of the time. We'll probably play this for 2, so it becomes a 2-drop. So I would probably cut down somewhere in our 1-drop slot, probably cut down a couple of frontliners, and then probably cut down you know, a rabbit battery down a little bit. and then maybe one Ronin is probably how it would start cutting. I know it's kind of the deck gets a little weird, I guess, as you get cards like this, just because it's probably going to put it in this converted mana cost area, even though it's more of a this converted mana cost area in our deck. After that, another card I think is a must add probably in the 3-drop slot is the Steel Seraph. It's a 6 mana 5/4 with flying. At the beginning of our combat, on our turn, target creature we control gains flying, vigilance, lifelink until end of turn. If we pay for the 6 mana side, it's a 6 mana 5/4. If we pay for its prototype side, what makes it a 3 mana 3/3 with flying. So it's still definitely a good card, definitely a solid card. I do think that you add into the deck. This is probably something you also want 4 copies of because it is that strong of a card. I probably cut like Twin Shot Snipers down a little bit, and then I probably look somewhere in the 1-drop slot yet again, as we're kind of getting thinner and thinner our 1-drop slot, because we're still an aggro deck, but we're not as aggro as I would say before. We'll probably cut down on like a Reinforced Ronin, and maybe we cut down on like a Hot Shot Mechanic and probably round out there. Then after that, the only card I would say that I have left in the sideboard that's definitely, I would say, something to consider when it comes to add-in is maybe add in a Platoon Dispenser, another 5-drop artifact. But I do think this is kind of one of those 5-drop artifacts that is definitely very good, in the sense that if we control 2 other creatures at the beginning of our end step, we get to draw a card, and itself creates creatures for 4 mana, so it allows us to kind of create a board presence even if we don't have a lot. I do think this is probably a card you maybe want to add in just like 1 or 2 copies of, is probably the best I would do here. What I would do probably, because of the cost, is I probably then look at like say something like a Circuit Mender. As much as like it's a great card, I do think Circuit Mender gets the cut there. And then we kind of add in the 2 Platoon Dispensers and kind of round it out like that overall. Other than that, a couple cards to look at that you could consider if you already have them in your collection is like Fable the Mirror Breaker. While itself is an enchantment, it's a very strong red card, and I would say if you're still working on getting the artifacts from this list and you maybe don't want to play Circuit Mender, I would suggest maybe playing Fable the Mirror Breaker in place of Circuit Mender as a possible card, just because it itself creates a creature. It also allows us to draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards in the process. And on the 3rd chapter, we can get the Reflection, which then allows us to copy creatures until the end of our next turn, which is definitely very good, which definitely makes us more aggressive in that sense, which is definitely very good overall, though I don't think it's a necessary card for the deck. After that, we have Queen Kaya Bin Krog. It's a 3 mana 2/3 that has a 4 mana ability that we discard all the cards in our hand, and depending on we can choose an artifact or a creature card with mana value 1, 2, and 3 discarded that way. If we do, we get to put them on the battlefield, though we can only do it as a sorcery. It's not a bad card. I just don't know if she really has a place, at least maybe in Constructed, but it is something that was from Brothers War that I was messing around with, I think even in the first deck when I started out with this list. But I just don't think she's that great, especially she's a little bit slow, a little bit clunky, and when we kind of made the adjustments to the initial list and added some upgrades, she doesn't really have like a great place anymore, because a lot of our stuff is, sure, we still have 1s and 2s, but we really don't have any 3s, as our 3s are really enchantments. And then, the other thing I would suggest is probably adding your dual lands are probably like a good necessity. I do think if you have the dual color starter decks already unlocked, you'll have the Sundown Passes. And typically when it comes to this stuff, I usually always do the, replace the dual lands first. And then I probably, if you want to add in your 4 copies of the Forge, you would add in your 4 copies and then cut down on a Plains and a Mountain. Though I would say you probably have to adjust the mana just a smidge, just because we have a couple more white cards in the deck. So you probably go to something like this. But I'll have this deck list down in the link below if you kind of want to see where you're at with the overall collection when it compares to what I have here in the final product. But still, nonetheless, this is definitely a great, like, solid artifact deck. I do think all the cards kind of work well with one another. It's definitely a deck that can get very aggressive very quickly and put a lot of pressure on your opponent's life total if they don't have any sort of way to deal with it. But with that being said, if you like the video, hit that like button. Definitely helps out a lot. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And if you're new here, you want to know when I post new videos like this one here on the channel, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Just want to give a special shout out to the channel members here on my YouTube channel. You can also become a channel member yourself down below the video, hitting that join button. It definitely helps out a lot, and I just appreciate you guys for your support.